afternoon to you, our dear esteemed viewers. Welcome back to this episode of the Youth Roundtable. My name is Douglas Trekonen, and this week we're talking about the youth perspectives on the presidential manifestos that cut across all the eight candidates that are running for president. But before we get or anticipate the conversation, allow me go ahead and introduce my guests who are going to give us their perspectives on the presidential manifestos that we're yet to see, or that the ones that we have seen, and then we have a conversation about the Uganda we want to see. In no particular order, allow me to introduce my guests, but also give them the chance to say hello, and then we dive straight into the conversation. I'll begin from my extreme left, Mr. Masawi Ivan. We're very happy to have you here once again.
Yes, Drake, thank you, and our viewers. I'm always delighted to be here to join the Youth Roundtable and our viewers in participating in the discussion about issues of national importance, but also seeing that as young people we be part of the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely looking forward to getting your insights. Right next to Mr. Masawi, we are joined by Miss Melody Nakalansi. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Drake, and it's always a pleasure being here and discussing issues that concern us as a country and as young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, we're joined by Council Tumusime Kakuru. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Drake, and good afternoon to our viewers. I'm glad to be part of this panel to discuss what is good for us as the youth in the upcoming elections.
Thank you. Allow me to stick with you, Council. The conversation today, we're looking at the presidential manifestos. And, you know, our constitutional history shows that we have had approximately nine presidents. And out of the 9 presidents, for the past 40 years, we've had 1 president. But that is immaterial for this conversation, though it will be material at some point. And to that effect, of course, the 1995 Constitution introduced elections that happens on a cycle of after 5 years. And to that effect, this time round, we have 8 presidential candidates. Of course, all of them are riding under various slogans. Notably, the National Resistance Movement is protecting the gains, among others. But let's first get your insights on the conversation today is on presidential, on the youth perspective on presidential manifestos. Let me just get your insight on how you want to have this conversation and how you want to drive it.
Well, I think what we need to do as youth, we need to discuss specifically what is good for us. Not what we love to hear, but what is good and in the real sense of it, that should be there to stand for us as a youth in this upcoming election. Because we are the majority. We are the majority in Uganda, and we have a lot to desire than the old people. So these manifestos ought to have had the sense of tackling most of the issues that affect us as youth, from employment, from education, from health, from security, and whatever. I think the biggest is us to be realistic in analyzing, not because we love political parties or not, but we should look at first of all, the keywords used by these political parties in their manifestos. If we talk about protecting the gains, what gains are we protecting? My mother is a teacher, is a primary teacher, and I was talking to her this week. She told me since the term began, they have not gone to school. Why? Because of the pay. You know, the arts teachers have been put much high, that we do not think of the primary teachers, but primary teachers are home. These primary P7 are starting their exams on the 30th, believing. Senior 4 has started, but teachers are not at school. So what are they going to answer? When we talk about health, you look at the hospitals, you go to the hospital, and it's a bit better here in the central, but in the outskirts of Kampala, it is the worst. You go to a referral hospital and they will tell you to go for a scan in a private medical facility, then you come for a checkup. They write for you medication to go and pick. We go to security. We have been in court. Sam Mugumya is now coming to 40 days. Still missing, even when court issued the habeas corpus order. But you know, the security is telling us we are not sure where he is, yet they have that little protocol. So that gain, I doubt it is. And when we look at other parties like the National Unity Platform, they talk about the new Uganda now. I believe in that so much because we see we need something to come in to change how the situation is. We talk about health. They are talking about health, providing health services. They are talking about school, maintaining children in school and feeding them, enhancing salaries, among others. So when I look at that, creating the jobs, when I look at that, I see for the NUP, it is much talking about us, the youth, because this is the situation we are in. We have students, our parents pay a lot of money for us in school. After school, you go back, they sold land, they sold the cattle for us who have some cows. They sell them, they educate you, you finish your university, you have no job. You go back and start begging them. I think also on the employment, it's not only good to talk about creating employment without showing ways how the employment will be created.
Yeah.
There is a lot of sectarianism. There is a lot of tribalism in how people get into those offices.
Okay.
There is no longer merit-based employment or recruitment, but now it is who you know,
Yeah.
how connected you are with them. You see, it is not good for us who are not known by the big wigs in government, yet educated, should remain there seated without jobs because we have no one to recommend us. I
Okay.
think it would be merit-based. I come, I apply, I do an interview, you find me what? Employ me.
All right. So let me just hold you there. It's good that you raise these questions and how you want to handle this conversation. You pose a very good question, and your angle of handling this debate is what is good for us as young people.
Yeah.
And your angle is going to focus on employment, education, security, and health. And from that premise that you've laid, you are of course going to look at you will ascertain what the NRM has for us. They're talking about protecting the gains. What gains are they protecting? Just pose a question to Noop, a new Uganda now. Yes, they have a plan for the young people, but the question is, do they have the will from the people? Something that we shall also yet to understand. But let me get to you, Masawi. How are you going to handle this conversation? Because this is a conversation that tackles our future as young people. And laying a premise for this debate is very important for us to know the angle that you want to approach it as well.
Yeah, Drake, thank you. I don't know whether you've asked me as how, because personally, as I'm seated here, I took part in drafting the FDC manifesto. And if you read it, because you know my handwriting, you'll see where my handwriting is. When we discuss manifestos, we need to be very holistic in our reality as a country. If we went back to 1961, we have been having quite a number of elections. The elections between Benedicto Chiwanuka and Obote were based on religion, Catholics versus Anglicans, and the Baganda versus Northerners. That late Dr. Milton Obote had a good relationship with the Ankole, that is Greater Bushenyi, Bugiswa, and Busoga. So he would compensate, and he became our prime minister then. We did come to the 1971. There was no need for a constitution to take power. It did come to 1979. There was no need for a constitution to take power. It did come to 1980. President Museveni and UPM participated. They had a symbol that held these two hands together, showing Uganda first. They were the last in that election. They never needed a constitution, a manifesto. So we have never had as a country an election that has relied on a manifesto. Because there was no need for a manifesto, those who were the last went to the bush. I don't think that needed a manifesto, right? Still coming with that history of manifestos. The last 40 years, His Council will tell you some of the cases that have been in court that never needed a manifesto. But because of the kind of elections that we go through as a country and the kind of avenues you use to take power in Uganda, I do some of these things as a gig. Someone mentioned here the word gig. But if you asked me, Masawi, when after waking up in the morning, that to be a president of Uganda, do you need a manifesto? Holistically, I'll tell you not. Right? So, coming back to your question, the FDC manifesto, how we did make 5 pillars. That was generating employment opportunities, strategic investment, human capital development, leadership and governance. Then we put interest groups for women, youth, and the likes, because we did take it that the issues affecting interest groups in such a generation have different demands and different consequences of responsibility, that the government should tailor its solution towards the demands of the times and also the fitness for the solutions that you're offering. So, coming back to your question, we do have 8 candidates in this race. I don't know if Ugandans know the 8. I don't know, Drake, if you're found on the street and tell us our 8 presidential candidates.
Yeah,
Will you mention all the 8?
definitely not.
But these are people whom want to lead the country, where you walk day and night, you sleep. Majority of the people don't know there is Frank Abulira, there is Robert Kasibante, there is Elton Mabirizi, there is the Honorable Ali Haji Munyagwa. They only know the election is between Bobby Wine, His Excellency General Museveni, Honorable Chagulanyi, Right Honorable Nanda. No one wants to say that we have 8 presidential candidates. Those are 8 full manifestos. And when we come here and we discuss as if we only know 2, 3, I think it also shows the quality of leaders that come up in Uganda and whether the manifesto is relevant for discussion. I don't want to say the topic was not right, and I don't want to say I'm not right to be for this particular topic. But Drake, coming back to you, is that in reality, I will take one candidate as a sample space. That is President Yoweri Museveni. His manifesto that was made by Honorable Katu, the man from Bushenyi, is a former minister for environment, Katundu, Kamuntu, Ephraim Kamuntu, and the current permanent secretary of Ministry of Finance. His 2021 manifesto. I do have it in my head. If you were to assess it, does it in anywhere reach even 30 to 40% of what they are putting in the protecting the gains? Because for a government that is remaining in power, you should have a progressive manifesto showing what you built and what, after what you've built, what you're protecting and what you're compounding on. In that manifesto, they had a Myoga. Before a Myoga was done, they came into a time and swindled it to PDM. In that manifesto, they had the skilling hubs. Before they turned them into presidential skilling hubs, into an entity of one individual of State House, no longer Ministry of Education. In that time, we had the budget, the economy, what was their ideas on economic growth was around 6.2. Now, when you look, they are again coming up with a manifesto which shows they are just new. They just landed in Uganda and they want to protect the gains. The only thing the NRM has done all years is that they will always have an advantage on security, defense, staying in power. And that is their strongest weapon that they have used against anyone who wants to challenge them.
Yeah.
But when you look at President Museveni in his campaigning, he just go to scare people. We saw Janet the other time in West Nile, vote for peace, peace, peace. I'm one of the Ugandans who agrees we need to appreciate him. He has fought for peace. Because in 1980, when there was peace, he became insecurity and came back as security. I think we with the young people, we forget alone that he went to become insecurity, attack Kabamba, cause insecurity in Western Uganda, and then became a savior. Because anyone who sees President Museveni in broad daylight, he can become security and insecurity at the same time. Those in Uganda who get lost under his regime, he's the very man protecting those who need protection and disappearing those who. So when you're dealing with his government, it is both security and insecurity at the same time. You don't say we are now very secure. You're only secure if you're worshipping. You're at the temple, you remove your shoes for the high priest, you take wuzu, and you're obedient. But once you can be in the same country when there is someone in a basement and you're on the street.
Let me just hold you there and bring in Melody, because we are going to assess that further. Melody, the historical perspective that Masawi gives us to this conversation is quite important to note that, of course, the first elections we saw in 1961, there were no proper manifestos really. Up front, the elections that were meant to happen in between after the 5 years didn't happen. We saw the 1966 constitution coming up, and later on the reign of terror, the period that Amin ruled this country. So, of course, the constitutions came much later. But before even that, UPC in 1968 came up with Common Man's Charter that was meant to develop this country and propel us forward. But let us now look at these 8 candidates. Masawi mentioned a very interesting point, that if I told you to go on the streets and ask people, which out of the 8 candidates, who is standing for president, you only get 2 names, at most 3. They will tell you Honorable Sentamu Chagulanyi. Of course, they will say Bobby Wine. They will tell you Nandala, Honorable Nandala, and they'll tell you Museveni. And some instances,
Muntu and Munyagwa.
Yeah, Muntu and Munyagwa. At most 5. The other 3 or 4, people do not know. But the question is, we're now having this conversation, and my brother here mentioned that we need to, we need to talk about what is good for us as young people. Let us now start understanding the assessment, because all these manifestos, for example, picking what the National Unity Platform is advocating for, that new Uganda now. Of course, under the manifesto, they're capturing the aspect of employment for young people. This comes from a background that we have very many unemployed people and have very many young people. Let's have your assessment.
Okay, thank you, Drake. I think it is bad that we call Amin's regime a reign of terror. I do not know, because I think that guy was good enough for this country, just that many people
Really?
did not
It was a reign of terror.
If we did
anyway,
maybe
that
for
is,
another day.
That is your
anyways.
opinion.
So my assessment for the manifestos is just, we just don't have to distance ourselves from the realities of whatever Uganda is going through. The most important thing is to say, these guys come up with manifestos because they know this is what we want to listen to. And this is it. Right now, most youth do not even want to associate with any of these politics, because this is a manifesto that people have come up over and over again with. Maybe Noop had a manifesto, and like in 2021, and they have gone and done simple editing to make sure that it fits the current situation. NRM will go and do the same thing, change the word, change their slogan, and then they are moving on with that same manifesto anyways. Apparently, you will see that there is nothing like an achievement that is happening in that regard. You will notice that if NRM had a manifesto to do with the Myoga and things like that, now they are pushing the manifesto to do with things like, we want to push parish development model in that regard to make sure that maybe poverty and things like that are done away with. But you notice that this is not realistic in any way. This is something that they have continuously talked about. They have had youth livelihood, they have had Demioga, they have a lot of projects in that same line. But you'll notice that it does not yield anything at the end of the day. And it means that people keep getting blinded by those things that they write in their manifesto, but nothing comes out of it. The other opposition manifestos in general, very good writings. But what is the practicality that these things are most likely going to happen? If you see the Noop manifesto, it is I think it's about 100 and something pages. Very good writing. But where is the practicality that even at the time when you do not take over power, you most likely help the common person that you intended to help in that regard? If you look at Munyagwa's manifesto, he has one of the best manifestos, by the way. If you look at it and how detailed it is, I know he will feel offended because he contributed to the FPC manifesto.
No.
But if you look at that guy's manifesto, I think if he put more seriousness in it, in putting it out to the people, or if people gave him a hearing ear and then maybe did not see comedy, they would see a good manifesto or a better Uganda. That
Substance.
I feel like the substance is there. The manifestos are good, but my question keeps the question that I keep asking myself: where is the likeliness that we will achieve these things at the end of the day? Because all the manifestos we have had, and of the people of the 40 years, and the fact that he has gone through, we have not seen a lot of change. If, like Masawi says, he keeps claiming we have security, we have peace, but absence of war does not necessarily mean there is peace. There's a lot of things happening in the country. If you have people getting abducted, if you have people losing their property like that, it means there is no peace in the country. It means security, like he says, is only meant for those that are at the table. If you look at everything that they tell you they are protecting, it's most likely not there. But if you look at now these other people saying that we are going to, okay, I don't get the whole idea of protest fought. But when I try to understand, they tell you,
It's a new Uganda.
yeah, it is a new Uganda, but I still do not get it very well. But if you look at what they show you in their manifesto, my question keeps, where is the practicality? Is this the reality that we are going to achieve? Or are girls going to keep going to the Middle East to look for jobs? Because where is the likeliness that you're going to create 1,000 jobs? Where is the likeliness that you will have the 1 million jobs for the guys that leave university and do not have where to go tomorrow? So if you look at all these manifestos, we are going to create roads. These are things that we have been listening to. These are things that everyone has talked about. If you look at other manifestos of these other three candidates that most people don't know about, are things that are even like in the NRM manifesto. If you look at, I think Mabidizi's manifesto is something to do with decentralization, something like that, that you have regional
Federal.
governance. Yes, something like that. And I'm wondering, how is this decentralization then different from the decentralization that is in power?
No, they
So-
enforce
It's
the
not
one
really
in Kenya.
decentralization.
They
Yes,
want to
like-
call
like
federalism.
it is not clear in that regard, but even when it is clear, it is trying to resonate with another person's manifesto of someone that has already failed to do what they were, of someone has already failed what they intended to achieve in the previous election. So it becomes hard that you keep questioning yourself, is this most likely going to happen? And as youth, I think the conversation is, do we really want to associate ourselves with these manifestos? Or are they realistic enough that we can achieve from them? Or the manifestos are just going to keep hanging just like the other manifestos have been hanging? Most of us tried to understand politics around 2011. I think that's when I think most of us really got old enough to understand what is happening in the country. But you'll notice that there has not been change in these manifestos. So it becomes hard for us then to trust an individual that has a same manifesto like the other person that is not in any way different, because what you're pushing for is what another person is pushing for. There's a candidate that was pushing for something like we think each village, I think it is Munyagwa, is pushing that each village gets money. And I'm trying to assess what is the difference between this and the parish development model.
No,
And why then giving people cash like the other people are doing?
You see, as a country, we all have similar struggles and
Yes.
similar challenges. So, in my opinion, I do not think
That's the
sharing
approach should be
ideas
different. No,
is
the
a bad
fact
thing.
that you saw something that failed in the other side, I do not think then you have a reason to take it out.
Okay, let me just hold you there and bring in Kanzo Kakuru. The conversation is now getting quite interesting, and my interest is in right now. Of course, I wanted to focus on Barroso Masawi. Is the NRM? The NRM has been in place for the last 40 years. All of us on this panel, we have grown up under that one system.
Yeah.
We have not known any other government. And when we talk about how we want to be governed, at times our own optimism or even our own pessimism could be blurred because we haven't seen anything else than what the NRM has provided us. The history that we have studied shows a very turbulent Uganda, which of course is true. We enjoyed very minimal years of
Relative peace.
of relative peace after independence, but the rest of the years, of course, history shows that it has been marred with a lot of violence and tyranny. The question now is, we have still the national resistance movement coming up with the idea of protecting the gains. And in your earlier submission, you asked the question, what is good for us as young people? And the assessment that you want to make is on grounds of employment, education, security, and health. For you, I just want us now to focus on fundamentally two things.
Yes.
On the argument of employment that Melody was building on, I would need a fair share of your response to that. But secondly, education, because education and employment moves in tandem.
Yeah.
We have very many young people who are yearning for jobs, but could that be as a result of the increasingly declining education system? Take it up from there.
Yeah, thank you so much. We need first to look at the policymakers in our education system to analyze and see. Yesterday, I was watching news and I had some schools were closed because they did not register senior 4 candidates. We have a full ministry of education. We have commissioners in that ministry. We have everything being paid for. You reach a date for exams and then that's when you come in. Children have lost their parents have lost their school fees.
Resources.
With this new curriculum, we have nothing else. You have to start. The new curriculum, the first set of students, I think, is now finishing senior 5.
They're going to senior 6.
But we do not have a curriculum for A level.
A-level.
But our children are there. Well, I don't have one there, but many of the Ugandan children are there.
Yeah.
We have no focus on where we are heading. So, what will that person who has lacked a curriculum for senior 5 and 6 do while at university? So I think you see the deliberate or the intended actions by the Ministry of Education. I would just stick it to the ministry. Is they are not interested in us as a community, but interested in themselves. I want you to ask yourself and our viewers out there, how many ministers in our Uganda here have their children in our schools, in our UPE schools? I don't want answers, but I want it to be in your mind. How many of them even go and help in maybe regulating how schools are run and what? The other time they are saying the teachers are not patriotic because they are paid 400, 500. I want you, Drake, to, and my panelists, to think about it in this angle. How much is rent? How much is school fees for a child? How much is a medical simani checkup or what? How much is transport from your home to work every day? And we have not even discussed other issues. Can that sustain 500 for a child, for a teacher? No. That is one thing. Then the other one is our schools, the setup of our schools. Children are still studying from tree shade. This is the 21st century, 40 years. It is so hard for us. Then we look at the employment. Of course, you see, when we have poor education system, our schools are not regulated. Everyone does whatever they want. We cannot bring up good students. We cannot bring up good people to employ. So you see, it is deliberate. And you see these people who go to international schools, the ministers' children, the commissioners' children, come back with a quality education from international schools. So even if we go for merit, they will be the people because they are way better than us who study from our poor schools.
I don't believe in that. I was always
Well,
there.
you don't believe in that, but it is real.
I was
because
in public
if-
school. I reached Chambogo and I beat people who came from.
Actually,
hands
you are
down.
so fortunate that you are the least number of in the bigger population.
Simple question, Ivan. From all the class you are in at
How
Mbale
many?
SS, how many of you are in
Can
Mbale?
be even here.
First of all,
Let's us hold it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But go ahead and make your
Thanks for the
submission.
contribution. Because some of us also. went
what I was
through-
refuting is that those people are bright,
No,
they
I'm
have
meaning-
leverage,
I'm meaning
they are
because
carrying documents they can't defend.
yeah, exactly. Because you see, they are talking of big schools. Mark, which ones you can name them. When someone brings his results slip, before you know it, you have employed him on the results. Whereas what he has in the head might be different, but based on the result, based on the school she has been to, King's College of Udo, where you know those schools.
Yeah.
It is different from me who studied from that school in my village. I can't say. So the deliberateness is there. You look at the Minister of Health, who is a Minister of Education, who is a mother. I may say mother, she's not mine. I can't call her that. For 40 years, our girls even failed to go to school because they lack a pad, a sanitary pad. But you see, Uganda, every quarter, they pack condoms in every corner of the place. Free.
Yeah, condoms are very easy to get.
So I want you to reason with me as a human being. Leaving girls without sanitary pads and providing free condoms, what is relevant for us?
I think they're both essential.
No.
But no.
Because let me
They have a
clear
very
it.
strong history with HIV.
Let me clear
Condoms
it.
are
No,
supposed to
let me
be
clear it. You see, you can abstain yourself from having sex, but you can't. A girl cannot abstain from. You get me?
from nature.
So by reason, you could think of what you can do in that hour. Even this year, there's nothing like a budget concerning girls. Many of them still miss schools. Whereas they have these issues of marginalized groups and what, but that has not been focused on. So I think the gain is really one thing. Also, maybe if they are talking about the gains they have got as individuals, because these are the people who have guns, these are the people who will go to the village and chase away old women from their land. Land grabbing is a serious issue, but most of it does not go on camera, on TV, because these people are already in need. They are forced away from their land by guns. Who have the guns? The military, the ministers, the what? Even these guns are going on to be used in campaigns. The other day I saw in a campaign of President Museveni, I saw a military person holding his microphone and campaigning, support Museveni, support NRM. If we had constitutionalism here, that guy would be in prison today. But it is not there. No one is even interested in talking about it. So it is all something lacking. And for me, the hope I have, having looked at the priorities in the NUP manifesto. Also, the other thing we want to see is how many pages does the NRM manifesto have? I read it, it has 185 pages. It is only in English. How many of us can read that page?
It's not inclusive. But let me get to you, Ivan. Very interesting submissions. I'm trying to assess the current government's manifesto because it's a government that has been there for 40 years. Councillor Kakuru has made his assessment on grounds of employment, education, and hinted on health. But Ivan, I'd also like to get your submissions in regards to the manifesto that is anchored on the slogan protecting the gains of the national resistance movement. What is your fair share of assessment on grounds of health and security?
Drake, we are human beings. We give our attention space to what we really work on a daily and where we belong. The most sarcastic thing about our panel today is that we lack someone who worships the NRM. So you're giving us to answer as if we are anywhere in the interests of how to lie Ugandans. President Museveni, even in 1980, when he was going to the bush, when you look at the friends like the Besigye's and Muntu, he's very good at manipulating. It's why all years later, John Kazola wrote his book of Betrayed by the Head. You would see how many people were betrayed. I don't know whether he has some black magic he accompanies his manipulation, but I can say he's lucky. Like I've told you, my attentional space is limited to documents that I feel I don't want to have bias. But like the NRM is the ruling party, we can never dissociate ourselves from its affairs, because whether they are using their heads or not, they are in power. When someone says they saw a military person campaigning for them, I imagine I've seen that. Rwasande to be where he is, he was in Masaka capturing everybody never to support, and is now an MP supported by the very government.
But you know it is criminal.
There are things that these people have justified that they are not criminal anymore. Because when the reality, the harsh reality is that there are reforms we need as a country after Museveni has gone, and there are reforms we can accommodate now. But if reforms relying to military law, to the UPDF Amendment Act, reforms relying to even corruption itself, that is an agreement we need at a time of national dialogue. But with the current government now, there is where cancer ate the leg and it will never require, it needs cutting. And even when you cut, you burn it because it may get rotten from somewhere near and be infectious. It just needs to be taken very far. So there are moments we may reach to have that dialogue, but not now. I'm telling you, I advised some people who are presidential candidates, not in my head thinking they will win Museveni in his system, but because you can never surrender that I will not show up because I don't have odds. We participate in these elections not because people will listen to your manifesto, you will have ideas. Tell me presidential candidates who are blocked to live where people are to go and campaign on an empty field. You're not allowed to access people. They are ever Munyagwa was struggling to go and have lunch in Parisa. That he says he wants to go and have lunch. They don't. They want him to go to the field, which is empty.
I saw them say that the place you wanted to eat from was so local.
I don't know if he has no right to eat. But like I tell you, myself, I was with the Honorable Nandala in Masindi on Independence Day. We had put our campaign rally at Boma grounds and police wants to dispatch us to the village. Yet people in Independence are all in the municipality having fun. We want to go where people are, the police is pushing us to where there are no people. And we defied, in the defiance, an NTV vehicle was knocked by a police car because NTV is covering. So there is no something like a casual election in Uganda which is preached in our course syllabus. What? The only thing I can appreciate you, Drake, is last week the Center for Constitutional Governance, while celebrating 30 years of the Constitution, there is something the Justice Ogola highlighted on that most Ugandans, because of our education sector, they teach us there are three organs of government. And no Ugandan is taught that there are four arms because after all those three, they are the people. The people who put these organs in power. So people have, there is one organ called Museveni and no another organ. So, the people and him, and for him is now stronger than the people on the weighing scale. So in these elections, we can show off around. We have mobilized today. We have also reached this district. What? But the honest, holistic elections, where you're told where to go and not to go, you're told which radio to go and not to go. Manifestos, everybody, they have, some even we glorify them calling them manifestos, but they are handouts. Some people have pamphlets. Because the requirements of a manifesto, like she did point the issue of practicability. If it is not practicable, it is a handout. Is why it is not about making very many pages. You need to show we generating employment opportunities as FDC.
Let me answer the question now.
We looked at agriculture, we looked at cooperatives, we looked at oil and gas, we looked at sports and creative arts. Then we looked at how, in agri-tech, what is the level of infrastructure, where are you going to invest, how much, which scaling indicators will you use to measure, to know whether you're progressing or not, what is the output you want to achieve, and at what cost sustainable to other governments like Kenya that have given every primary child a pad and employed an ICT teacher in every lower primary. Where did you benchmark? How practical is it? Where are you going to identify the money? And as you're doing that, how many people are you pushing to the taxable economy that you'll have revenue? You want to cut the debt burden. What are you substituting? Where are you substituting your loans? Where are you going to invest more? We are to invest 10% of the budget in agriculture.
Excuse me, Ivan. as you went up on that, there's something that has come across my that has just ticked in my mind right now. You see how you are assessing that? How many Ugandans can sit down and even first of all pay attention to these manifestos,
Drake,
assess them from because we no longer are interested in issue-based politics, and we are so much interested about praising that individual and then forget
Regardless.
the issue.
Yeah.
Drake, there was a debate in a few weeks about elitism and people who are wheelbarrow pushers. And me, I don't apologize that even when we don't want issue-based politics, we need to have people who should help people who are. I liked the new principle because he sent his MPs to go and preach his manifesto and stop following him. Even in 1980, President Museveni never lured everybody to join him in the bush. He only went to Makerere and chose the Tumukundes who could understand what it meant at that time.
And then made from
The VSJs, and went with those few who could understand the cost of change, and they changed the country. He never went to the other people who are uneducated were just lured and
you see now from that assessment, how many students can then therefore be interested in these issues? Because looking at our history, in 1973, when there was an attempted coup against the Means government, it was conducted by students, mainly by students who are being trained in Tanzania. And later on, we see the people who joined Museveni were still young people and students. So you can see that the young people or the youth can either be used as a weapon or can be used or either victims.
Can I give you an answer to that?
Yeah.
You cannot say young people will be the change makers or will be in the revolution when they were in the national youth, in the Afro-Arab conference, and they were receiving cash from Baram and it was evident on camera. So how do you then want to use the same
The challenge you're feeling is that you don't need every young people to be on the same bar. Even when we are stayed here, everybody is good in something. You just need those who are good in bringing change. When we are all in our villages, I come from Bududa. Not all of us went for the same cause. Drake, in this issue to liberate Uganda, we need those who are convicted and those who it was their purpose to wake up and do their work perfectly, excellently well.
But if you notice, most of them are getting compromised every day.
Those who are compromised were born for handouts. There are people who are going to be borrowers. And
we
they
have
look
had
very
most of them then move. I swear, like, if you notice the shift from 2021 to 2025 now, most youth that were brilliant and would cause change, most of them have shifted for God's sake either.
You just assume they would cause change. But it was not them. Even Masai, even if I changed, it just requires those of you us to be convicted and say that whether I changed or not, we are going to be here, Drake. Today it may be around 2 p.m. But there is going to be a year 2040, 2 p.m. Whether I will be dead or alive, there will be people here. In this particular part of the world, in Uganda, there will be people.
All right, let me just hold you there. I'm going to get back to you when we come back from the break and also engage you, Melody. But the conversation is now getting interesting. Because the question of how can we get more young people interested in these conversations or interested in this
They
struggle?
don't know there is an organ called the people. They have taught them as well. They are free organ.
Let's just hold them. Let's go for a short break. See you in a bit.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from the break. My name is Douglas Treconel, and this is the Youth Roundtable. Just before we went into the break, Ivan, you were trying to give an assessment on, of course, the young people and why exactly there is so much in young people that are not interested in the cause. And Melody mentions that there are very many young people who she saw that had that ambition to make a better Uganda, all of them being swayed into the other ideology. But everyone is free to choose which side to affiliate with. But the question now is, just like how you're making an assessment of all these issues, you sat down when you're drafting the manifestos of FDC, and you know
Drake, let's
exactly
leave
what it
manifestos.
is.
They have told you what is going to cause change in Uganda. There has never been a manifesto cause change in any of whether Libya, whether Sudan, whether. I want to give you practical examples. I'll take Sudan because I've been there in Khartoum personally. When the price of bread went high and the young girl led a revolution using bread that outsmarted Bashir, it was not about the majority and even not about the political. It was about the tired. Whenever people will say that time will come, it's not that it will be about Masai who loved politics alone. Someone beautiful or somewhere can just say that us, the beautiful women, we have refused and we are standing against it with their makeup and long eyelids. It will not need to be that politicians, what? There is a way we have glorified that things to happen should be a political class. When we wake up paying yaka, paying water bills with our sick roads and everybody surviving for data, what? It is not that a politician buys a lower class and for the other person wearing a jean will pay cheaply. Haircuts, they are out there discounted. No haircuts, there is no discount. Drake, change, and there is going to come a time where the convicted. I don't want to believe God has forgotten Uganda. I'm a believer. I know God still has us on his mini. He's just waiting at the right time. But you brought me here to discuss manifestos. I want to be honest. There are issues I never want to waste time on. That I've been here, I've followed the elections, that a manifesto has anything. I've seen the late Bilal had one of the best manifestos. Dr. Abed Bwanika had one of the best manifestos on agriculture, and Uganda is an agriculture country.
But what has he done?
It was not. No, it was
in
not.
agriculture. It is
If we, Drake, if you got consultants and you gave out manifestos, they assess. The manifesto they will choose to be most fit for purpose, you will find will not be the most consumed by time, the conversion by votes. So it is not manifestos. But like I told you, our elections are symbolism. We are in a state. In Libya, they had abolished the elections and they were on the GMP. But there were people who believed that their time for seeing Gaddafi's family move away would come, and they may be still struggling, but time will come and it will be history. I never want to say I will feel good for the time for suffering when it comes. Life is born for both. Actually, in our being on earth, majority of our time is in suffering than happiness. So I never move in isolation that suffering is very expensive. Suffering is far more cheaper than peace. But because we are not intentional about saying that we achieve peace, it means we have been more intentional about receiving suffering.
Okay.
We have failed to conduct transitions, we have failed to conduct free and fair elections, we have failed to conduct an environment sustaining human rights, we have failed to conduct a country that really works for everybody, and we work for a family. A family and its in-laws. So once you're working for a family and its in-laws, you may think it will only be about the family. But even you, the escorts, they are friends in NRM who carry bags for people who are in power, mobilizers. But when he's talking to you, he wants to rubbish you as if for him is in power, because he carries a chodi's bag, he wants to make you look rubbish. But the cost of any Africa, we are so disadvantaged that we have too many lessons, but very few people have learned.
Okay, let me just
Yes.
hold you on that point. Too many lessons and very few people have learned. Melody, very interesting conversation we're having here right now. And Masawi says for him in this conversation he doesn't talk about manifestos because manifestos has not led to any change in Uganda, but also in most of the African countries that he has given examples to, notably Sudan, Libya, among others. But now the conversation is, the fact is we are a very young continent, very young country. And we are going to be here today, we're going to be here tomorrow. But the most unfortunate part, the average age in our cabinet is 2 years ago, the Daily Monitor said it was 65 years old. I think it has shot up. But let me use that example of a cabinet average age of 65 years old is leading an average age of a country that is 20, 21 years old. There's a huge divide. Now the question is, us as young people, is there a time that we're going to sit up and say, okay, we have arrived and it is our time? Or shall we always be consumed by the philosophies of the old?
Okay. I think the time will come, but it may take much more time than we actually think. The time will come when we have a generation of 35-year-olds, of 30-year-olds being Minister of Children and Youth, not a 40-something or a 50-something-year-old. Transitions happen, he says, but I do not know why we still have Ivan on this panel. I feel like he should be somewhere in the bush trying to cause the change without the manifesto. It is sad that he drafted the FDC manifesto, but he's still here with us, and he does not believe in the manifesto that,
I've told
that
you,
he shifted.
there are things
No.
I attended in school because I wanted to pass
The,
exams, but
the
not-
idea that you
I'll
keep
use
showing
them
up for an
anyway.
election where you know you're not going to win then is a disadvantage to you who drafts that manifesto anyways. But the time for us to reach where I want to be as young people is a process. And I think Ivan says that it needs 1, 2, or 3 people, but that cannot be true. It needs a combined effort. When we have people that belong to the side where we say that whatever gains you're protecting are things that do not exist, then I think those are people we still have to hold on. Everyone has something they contribute regardless of their position. If you're a person that we think we look up to and you're a minister of, you're a national female youth member of parliament, we think you're at that position for a reason. But at a time when you belong to a certain group and then you shift to protecting the gains, it then becomes a disadvantage to all of us. Because if Drake, I see you right now and we are friends and you are maybe at a certain position, I know you're in that position for a reason that you can cause change, that you can make things happen in that regard. But at a time when you then get compromised, like I was telling Ivan, you get compromised and then you shift, it means whatever ideology that you had is most likely not going to get pushed. This is the problem of political parties. Even when you associate with NOP or ANT or FDC, those political parties have specific things that they push. At a time when you associate with them, it means what you have as an individual is most likely not going to get pushed anymore. It means that problems that you are going to solve are not going to get solved. Even when you say maybe things that I was trying to solve are getting are sort of still listed somewhere else, it does not give you the actual the reason that you would have as an individual or the actual ground to fight for what you are looking for. It becomes hard for you because you have an institution that is pushing you to push for something else. It means that whatever your priorities were are most likely sidelined and you do not consider them anymore. What that means is that at a time when we have youth shifting to protecting the gains, and of which gains they do not see, maybe like he says, they are personal gains, I think it becomes problematic for the country that us achieving the change we want will most likely come maybe after the guy has died, or also may not come because maybe he has built a generation that is most likely going to take over him, maybe his son or his grandson. It means that you have the same generation of leaders, the same generation of ideologies getting pushed and trying to protect gains that do not exist. It becomes hard then for other youth that think we can change this country like Ivan and cannot even come out and go to the bush when they say that the manifesto is not going to work. It becomes hard in that regard because you cannot change a country where you have people that keep getting compromised every day. Even when he still argues that it is one person or 2 people, it is not practical in that way because you are fighting or you are trying to take over someone that has a lot on their side. It means you also need numbers, not just numbers, but you also need that knowledge that comes from everyone. We have a lot of leaders of young leaders that were good enough, people that we would look up to during our time. But most of them have like shifted and they are now protecting the gains. It becomes a disadvantage to us that us who are trying to see that we get something or we learn something from them, we cannot learn from them anymore because they are not there anyways. I cannot now stand up and say I look up to Alionze. I cannot. I used to look up to this guy. I do not subscribe to Noop, but I used to look at this guild president and say that I think there's something great in this guy.
But Melody, what happens in a situation whereby you have no option but to side with the oppressor?
No. At the time then when you side with him, I think the conversation should shift now from your personal interests to now the interests of the entire youth. If
Okay.
you side with him,
Let me-
then
let
make
me-
it to the interest of the
let me-
majority, not your personal interest.
Let me just hold you there, because you see, as human beings, we also have coping mechanisms, and I think we are in a generation whereby
Drake, I have always told you, no one has ever produced a child to be in opposition.
true, no one has ever produced a child to be in opposition, but circumstances, because of our human nature, we tend to adapt to certain situations.
Everybody would love to be
In government. I know. But let me get to you, Council. Demilitarization of our politics. A conversation that, if at all we look at the armpits of security, something that is not hinted or talked about much, but I think it's very important. It is unfortunate that the army got involved in our politics way too early, just 8 or 9 years just after independence, after the Ocheng motion that was moved in 1967. Yeah, Ocheng went ahead and said they should probe Amin, and Amin, because he was scared of being taken to prison, said, you know what, I need to overthrow this government. Since then, we have had the army involved in our politics. Today, we have the army, of course, directly now campaigning for the person of the president. We have seen videos of the army man who was jubilating and dancing on the stage.
You have the patriotic league led by
So demilitarization of our politics,
Mm.
because that is an arm, or the people's army, that is supposed to stand with the citizens.
Yeah.
But from where we stand, and the submissions we made, the likes of Sam Mukumbia, who is still we're still in custody after this. So the conversation is now, how can we demilitarize our politics? We're talking about manifestos, yes, but
I think time is a friend of every person. So with time, we shall reach there, and we shall have no military in our electoral processes. But we shouldn't go away from realistic conversations. This is a government led by guerrilla warfare, generals, whatever. So they are drunk with the gun. Even the president, who tells us we have a lot of security, he walks in a cage. This is a president who claims he's loved so much. He has about 45, the last time I checked, 45 cars on his convoy, with army, with the, members, as if we are into the, I don't know, the M23 issues. The first thing, we have been betrayed much by Electoral Commission. I don't see anything better with it because of its appointment and formation. Because if I appoint you, I will give you directions on how to handle it or not. For that reason, they are only in support of the president, because the other time the Electoral Commission spokesperson openly said, if it is disrupting traffic by the government, by the president, we have no issue, no complaint. So that one sees we have no balance in how we handle our issues. Two, these army men now have become entitled. They have that entitlement of Uganda. We no longer have our constitution in place, because if we had a constitution, we would not have a partisan army like we do now. Until we change this government and totally clear everything it came up with, we shall still have this military directly engaging And now we are going to see even there will be, now we are seeing serving officers being elected or politically campaigning for candidates. The CDF is telling us we are PLU and NRM, we are the next in government. Is a CDF of the entire military of Uganda. So what do you expect from someone? Remember, he's a general, he has corporals, he has those
There's
other
your mind
ranks.
for fear and terror.
So the order would be do this, because this military man doesn't want to sleep hungry. You'll have to comply. But you see, as day follows night, even these military people will reach a point and feel enough is enough. Until they regain their consciousness, now they get to realities. They see that no, if I go to hospital, yes, I'm a military man, I need medicine, which is not there. If I take my children to school, they need school fees, I don't have money. If I'm also kidnapped, I might get lost from, like other normal civilians. When the military officers put into their mind that they are also human beings like us, apart from putting on their military attire, they will come back to the senses and they will maybe understand what some of us are going through, what is grieving us so much, and they will join us. The other day I saw military men in which country is this that is going through Madagascar. The military, the orders told the military to shoot at the protesters and the military refused. They are now part of the protest. So that time is going to come. I believe, I'm not sure, I'm not a prophet, but I know as day follows night, we might even be here today and tomorrow we find these people have changed. So it's just a matter of time. But if we still have this government as it is, where they think they can do anything and no one even bothers to talk about, we still have a way to go.
All right. Ivan, as we're edging towards the end of this conversation, for you said you don't talk about manifestos.
Yeah, I kindly apologize because
What is his
I don't know if any
alternative?
of them has spoke about any manifesto.
What is his alternative
No,
now
His
if he's not?
alternative is the bush.
Then
no. We definitely wouldn't want to open violence, but
I don't know if you've had anybody here speak about any manifesto.
we did actually.
We did.
we talked about manifesto, but for you don't even believe in one. So.
No,
That you
okay.
created
Yeah,
one.
but as we edge towards the end of the conversation, I want us to talk about what the opposition has to offer in terms of alternatives. The Forum for Democratic Change in your submissions, you talked about you have human capital development, leadership and governance. You also focused on the interest groups, among others. Something that you're offering as an alternative for Ugandans. But also, I'd like to look at other political parties like the National Unity Platform that is coming up with this
The ANT also has some good documents.
Yes, even the ANT, the Alliance for National Transformation. What the opposition leaders that are vying for these positions have as an alternative to what is at the moment to protecting the gains?
Yes, the 7 candidates have good dreams for this country. They are 7 because they are against
Minus.
1. I don't know. As in politics, the way we calculate is in negative. So you'll forgive me. I do politics. People think I do it as a side gig, but whereas I do engineering work from morning to 5, I know what I do best. So coming to alternatives, first of all, in the last election, 18 million voters were registered, only 10 million voted. So a close of 8 million people didn't vote.
Close to half.
By statistics, since 96, every election, 4 million people averagely don't vote. But the last year was 2021 election, 8 million people didn't vote. So when you are advocating for a critical mass, numbers, politics is a game of numbers. Numbers are very key. As people who are in the alternative side, they need to reach out to more and more people who don't vote to come out to vote, but in their favor. If at all an election will lead to change, right? But we don't only need to prepare a population for voting. We should prepare a population past votes but past saying that we have a transition in a country.
Mm.
Even if we voted out Museveni, when people's brains are not ready to see that when one bullet is fired up, they will remain standing and not all. A family will fight, will sleeping in one room. We all want to fight to enter under one bed. Then we need to prepare a population to see that even when we outvoted Museveni, how do we deal with our egos, our dysfunctionalities, but also our advantages and disadvantages as a country to holistically move forward as a united nation? Because like I've told you, we have people who are too much. We have someone who threatens the friends' investment. We need to look after all these people. Life leadership and governance, we look that we have people who are so entitled. They like toy cars, they play in the basement with toys. We need to all see that all these people, given they are somewhere, we have how we shall deal with them. And any opposition leader who wants to take off power, you should prepare to see President Museveni after the Bush, he recruited the Omara Tubos, very many UPC cadres. The sons of the people who had died, like you have seen, one has been a minister for foreign affairs state for so long, the one of Okero. Yes, but you have seen Akena and how they have worked. You have seen a lot of people from Mengo who are worked and who are people of the state. So that reconciliation is where. But before we reach there, like I've said, the first responsibility is mobilizing more of people who don't vote. People may say, why aren't we divided? Why are we disunited as opposition? Even in a time of disunity, actually, me, I am one of the believers who believe that we are going to have this when people think the odds are against us. This country will change, and I don't want to scare people that it will change for us. It will change for better. Because those who are sleeping hungry should also get a day and have supper. Whether you want it, whether you have cattle, whether you have what, there is a day where those who are sleeping hungry, God will remember them like he remembered some guy in a shack, and they will also have supper, whether you want or you don't want. It is our prayer and in the best interest that we don't look at people in power as enemies, but we look at them as people who want to correct and bring back to track. Because I don't want to say that NRM doesn't have any way of confusing people to join them, or there are no people benefiting. There is a big chunk of also those who are benefiting as good mobilizers in the NRM. But anybody who wants to take power, you need to have a plan of looking after all those, because most are not qualified. Some even are mediocres at work. You will give them work, they are good at corruption, stealing. You need to take care of all those vices and seeing that you accommodate them to teach them to return to the right. They don't care.
So as you wind up,
So as I wind up, I request that we rally more people to know their civic responsibility. We agitate for critical mass. If we be more hungry for power than citizens that are empowered, we shall never achieve power. Power is achieved by first empowering your citizens to know what capacity and strength they have. You as an opposition leader alone, you can't do much under an empowered citizen. It should be the citizens' voice to speak over manifestos, over the opposition leaders. It should be the current state that we have where an individual is more powerful than the citizens. This is what we are fighting. Not that I love Nandala so much. No, don't be right. I'm fighting to see that for the first time, the 99% of people who are feel disempowered feel they have a right in their affairs. But not that I love FDC anywhere. I can wake up tomorrow and I'm not FDC, but I want to see a citizen who can speak empowered about issues concerning their.
Thank you. Melody, recommendations and concluding remarks.
Okay, just a simple recommendation. Like, I think it is important that each one of us takes part in this election, because that is the only option we have right now. No one wants to go to the bush. No one wants violence. I think the peace we have is not enough, but we do not want to get to a worse state. If we did the election and voted for the right people and voted out people that we think are not right, then I think we'd have a better Uganda and would have youth representation like the way we want it, because you notice we have a lot of youth aspirants coming for positions.
Yeah.
I think we would have a better Uganda, would have better representation, and maybe things to do with economy, things to do with education would most likely be worked on if we voted the right people.
Thank you. Councillor Kakuru, your recommendations and concluding remarks.
So I think my biggest recommendation is us, the young people, to know what we desire to have. Let everyone go home, ask yourself whether you have the gains you want to protect, whether you can afford food, whether you can afford medical bills, whether you can afford what. That should make you wake up, vote for a candidate who can lead for change. To be honest with you, as we are now, we have nothing good, and it is our duty as young people to fight for a better Uganda.
Thank you, Masawi. Let me give you 30 seconds to sign us out today.
I want to appreciate to our viewers, civic responsibility is a birthright entitled to everybody by God. Fight very hard that you leave this world at least when you've done 2% of the business you are supposed to do. That includes seeing that Uganda is the country you wished it to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ivan, Melody, Councillor Kakuru, for the wonderful insights in this discussion. Personally, I've had an interesting conversation. I don't know if you guys did the same. Of course, Ivan, you tried to tell us for you. But it has been lovely having all of you. And I think for the Uganda we want to see, we always need to dialogue. And I think for the powers that are, and for us, the powers that want to be, we need to be in position to dialogue. We need to be in position to speak truth to power. But also we need to be able to, assess that and accept that we have gone wrong here and we need to get back on the right track. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the time that you have taken to join us in this discussion. To you, our dear esteemed viewers, for always religiously following the Youth Roundtable, thank you very much for joining and thank you very much for watching. Please do follow us on all our social media platforms, that is on X, LinkedIn, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and all the other platforms. But also to Center for Constitutional Governance for bringing this conversation and making it possible. Thank you very much. My name is Douglas Trekonen. See you next week, same time, same place. Have a blessed week. Bye-bye.